change everything that I do, and I think the whole sport has now changed. But the bottom line is, you don't have to practice bringing guys to the ground. It's all about position. Tackling is technique and timing. So what I'm looking for out there is to make sure, I call it owning your hip, right? And you can do this all year long. You don't need pads on. You just have to own your hip. If this microphone is the runner, I got to have one guy here, and he's just got to be in good position, and he's got to tag the hip. And then I got to have another guy here with his near leg up, and he's got to tag the hip. And you can do that all over the field, and you don't ever really have to tackle anybody. If you're in the right position and you teach them that it's okay to miss tackles if you're in the right position, because when you're looking at it as a fan or a guy who studies it or reports on it, if you see a guy fly by and miss, but he's on the right angle, you're not going to pay much attention to it, because there's going to be another guy right. You're not going to miss badly. You're just going to miss, but there's going to be another guy right in position to make the tackle. It's the ones that stand out are when a guy loses leverage, right, and the ball cuts back and it looks bad and there's nobody else there on the defense. So it's all about timing and technique and angles. And if we're on them all the time, about tagging hips and being in position near foot up. Now that's it. Like you have to mentally tackle even when you're not. You have to shoot. I'm tackling. You got the adjustment has to go in your mind, to your foot, to your hands. And you have to say, okay, I'm going to tackle that guy right there. And when you do that, and if you do it over and over and over again, and I think if you look at the teams I've had in the past, we were great tacklers, but we never tackled in practice. We just worked and harped all the time on position and where you at on the sideline, where you at on the field. Vice, own your hip. It's an 11-man game. If you're going to miss, let them miss. It's okay if they miss aggressively on the proper side of the runner. So a lot of it is just without pads.
Some defensive coaches preach about rugby style tackling. Where are you at on that?
I'm into it for sure. Because the standard approach, again, if this is the ball carrier, what we all taught going back to Woody Hayes was head across the bow. When you're making a tackle, we don't use the head anymore, so you don't teach that. So now you teach near leg, near shoulder, profile, because you're keeping your head out of it. Well, if you're keeping your head out of it, then that's naturally, as the runner gets away from you, that's naturally going to turn into a roll tackle. You know what I mean? So everything we do is really based off of those principles, keeping your head out of it, and it all turns into rugby tackling. It really does. There's not, we are not harping on those major contact collisions in practice, even when we get pads on. We're not. It's football. It's a physical game. It's going to happen. But we're really teaching angles, keep your head out of it, use that rugby approach.
We'll go to the far back. Adam King, WBNS TV.
Coach, I'm just kind of curious how much this season so far, the spring and off season, has been different for you compared to the other time in your career.
Well, it's different because it's It's the Ohio State, and it's different because everything here, the expectations, the amount of resources that I have with coaches on the field, analysts off the field, recruiting resources. I basically have everything I ever wanted, or anything any coach could ever want. When you dream about being a coach at this level, that's it. All the resources. So that makes it different. I'm hyper-focused on my role and my job, and I don't have to worry about other things here because our administration and the program is all going to take care of that. So it's just, there's a hyper-focus for sure.
We'll go over here, Austin Ward to the far right here, Coach Austin Ward, Letterman Row.
When you look at the roster, it seems like you have the body type for athleticism to do whatever you would want in linebacker. When you look at those two primary spots, what differentiates them from you? What are you looking for guys who might take those top spots?
Yeah, there's not much difference between our two linebacker positions, and they really need to be able to play in the box and in space on the edge. In the box and in space. blitz, and cover. So we're really looking for complete versatility out of those positions. I mean, if I find a guy who is more of just an internal tackle-to-tackle guy, I can adjust things to make sure he's in that position. But right now, I want to put the guys in as many different positions as possible to see what they're good at, so I can build things around what we have here.
How long do you think it would take somebody like Chip to transition over to defense, learn what you're trying to do? I know it's one day of practice and one day of pass. What sort do you project for him?
Oh, I think he's got great potential. I don't view him any differently than a guy who's played defense for the last 3 or 4 years. You know, everybody's starting on day one, and he's right in there with everybody.
Second row middle, Rob Aller, Columbus Dispatch.
Jim, you talked about players keeping their heads out of the play. You have to keep your head out of it, coach. Like not just the academic, but the athletic.
Well, yeah, I think that's a great point. I have coaches, we all have certain schemes, and you're right, things that we want to install, things that we know have worked for us in the past, right? That's the academic, that's the coursework. You know, I have a whole set of coursework that goes from level 100 to 400, and you're right, it's not about what I know, right? Players don't care how much I know, but they know how much I care. So it is about just learning, like you said, what can the guys that we have do best? Then it's my job to take from the things that I know and boil it down to what they can do best. So athletic first, for sure, and I have to always remind myself of that. That's why it's a great question, and because I can get in my head and start fast forwarding, you know, and think about the upcoming opponents and what we're going to have to do, but I need to find out what our guys can do first. Yeah. Yeah. I've improved a lot as a teacher, right? I mean, teach, motivate, demand. Teach, motivate, demand. So, you know, in the past, maybe I jumped to demand too soon. Now it has to be teach, tell them what you want to do, give them a reason why they should do it, right? So we always try to illustrate why this works. And then if they don't get it, go back and teach again. And, you know, when you finally get to be demanding, if you've done the right procedure, then, you know, they're ready to be demanded, you know. So I'm much more thorough at the teaching part, direct teaching, responses from the players, keeping the meetings lively, interactive, things that they can look at on their phone, because that's where they live, and really approach teaching as to what the players, how their life goes every day, you know. Yeah, and then you know, if the student hasn't learned, the teacher hasn't taught. Now that's like, you know, when you get through a career, you start to, you know, when you're young, you'll get upset, you know, if a guy doesn't get something, and now I look at it like, hey, you know, that's my responsibility. He has not learned it well enough because I have not taught it well enough. So you're always constantly looking at yourself like, how can I approach this better to be a better teacher?
Part of that culture change 30 years ago, tell a guy to do today.
Yep. Yes, this generation wants reason, they want meaning, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that, right? I mean, that's good. You know, that forces us to grow as teachers and show them the reason and give them meaning why they're doing something.
Right next door, Doug Maurice, Cleveland.com.
Jim, like Port Williams was working with the safety coach today. You know, it seems like he has some linebacker skills, some safety skills. How did you evaluate him as a player and figure out the best way to use him?
Yeah, I think right now, from what I saw, Court from last year and his leadership skills, this is a safety-driven defense. You know, it really is. And he's been playing a lot at our boundary safety position, which we call bandit. We feel like he can get into the run fit there when we want him. We feel that he's a guy who's he's a leader. He just off the field, when I watched him in the weight room and work, he's a worker, he's a leader. So I like him. I like him with more depth and vision to be able to see the ball and to control kind of the movements of the secondary.
And then the jack position, when you guys are in practice, do those guys work more with the defensive line or more with the linebackers? And who are some of the players on this roster you think take that spot?
Yeah, haven't even gone there yet. So, I mean, I can't answer that question because we have not gone there yet. We just started in true 4 down, because that's what we've been here in the past at the Ohio State. So we're going to take that at least for the first week and just stay in 4 down. So we haven't gone there yet.
We're going to go front row left. Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
Hi, Jim. Obviously, just the first day, not pads, not tackling. But could you sense a difference in just the caliber of player, of athlete that you're coaching out here?
I mean, yeah, we have speed everywhere. We have size everywhere. The way guys move on the football field, it's impressive to me. Obviously, day one now, it's my job to mold that into a cohesive unit and a defense.
And Coach, they talked about leadership, and obviously you weren't here last year. But what's your sense of leadership on this team? What you've seen in the 7 weeks?
Yeah, I think we got a real chance. I'm still studying, but when you watch what Mick does in the weight room and those guys and how they organize things and how they challenge things, and Coach Day set up a real leadership program to develop leaders. So I'm just kind of sitting back and watching that, because my job is defense, but what I see is leaders all over the place and guys who want to be leaders. So I think we have a real chance in that area.
Right next door, Clay Hall, WSYX.
Coach, how are you? Welcome. What have you learned about the rivalry with the team up north since you've been here? A lot of people think, well, they can score 45 a game. If this Jim Knowles takes care of the defense, we got this thing.
I tell you what, it is impressive to go against one of the nation's, if not the best offense right here, on the practice field. And I see that. I see what Coach has done and all the offensive coaches done. I know that they're going to be great. And we do have to raise our level of defensive production and accountability to match that and to match what Coach Mick does in the weight room. When we do that, everything else will fall in line, but I'm just focused right now on installing the defense and teaching habits and competition, and that's something that we have to do all the time. The habit of how we run on the field, how we run off the field, how we finish plays. That's just the habits that have to go in order for you to be good. That all starts on day one.
When you look at this defense, what do you see on the D-line? When they've had great teams here, they've been dominating up front. Where are they? Where are you right now? At the very beginning, I guess.
At the beginning, I see a lot of talent. I see a lot of want to. I see a lot of numbers, depth. Now, we have a lot of guys out, too, right, for the spring on the D-line. So, I see a cohesive unit and what Coach Johnson has done. And I'm real confident in the front, that they're going to be one of the better fronts in the country.
Right behind him, Tim May, Letterman Row.
Yeah, Jim, Josh Proctor's not going to be able to take part fully in the spring. He has some tape behind him, et cetera. I'm trying to remember if you were at Oklahoma State when he was being recruited, you knew of him, et cetera. But how do you keep a guy like that in mind, even though he can't go maybe full go, et cetera, through the spring, even though he has got some video?
It's my job to make sure that he still learns and Perry's job to keep him engaged mentally and all of our jobs to encourage him to stay involved. But when it comes to on the field coaching, there's not much we can do, right?
Yeah.
He's got to take a lot of mental reps. We got to just give him encouragement, because I remember him from high school and from what I've seen on film, he is a guy that can really have a positive effect for our defense on the field. So it's just really mental reps and encouragement.
And one other quickie, Was there anything worse than a lecture class when you were in school? And maybe you like lecture classes, but is today more about just the individual? Each individual has a button to push, so to speak. You got to find that button as a teacher.
You know, it all depends on the professor or the teacher, right? I mean, I had some great lecture classes. Jim Moss, one of the leading psych professors in the country. I remember that class was great. It had like 1,000 people, but that's because it was interactive. And even back then in the 80s, he had short video clips and different ways to grab your attention. So, I mean, there is a role for the lecturer. Like when I get the whole defense, there is a spot for that, but I have to grab their attention. I have to give them a reason to be interested and stay interested and to respond back. Now, you're right, those things can't be long anymore. They got to be short, right? I mean, I think the attention spans nowadays are shorter. But then it does move to a lot of individual teaching. But we can still have good lecture classes, but it is the role of the professor to be great.
Right next door, Bill Landis, The Athletic.
Jim, previously it's sort of been either Ronnie or Court playing boundary safety here. Do you envision those two guys being able to play together? Does Ronnie have any skills that would allow him to play free safety?
Yes, the answer is yes. I do envision them both playing together.
What did you observe about Ronnie, I guess, when you were able to watch him, see him a little bit out on the field, that you think he can move to that spot?
Yeah, I just think he is a heads-up guy. I think he's a football player. I think he understands defense. He communicates. He's got a great personality. He's everything I want in a safety, so I definitely want him on the field, and I want Court on the field too.
Over here to the right, we have time for just a few more questions, folks. Front row there, Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
I mean, Cade is, I can tell already, you know, from the off season, he's a tough guy. He's, you know, what Mick would, in the weight room would call a dude. He's just a guy that shows up, goes to work every day, and he's a guy that's going to fight for the Ohio State, you know. So I now have to find a role for him, right? So kind of starting off at linebacker, you know, he would be a guy that might morph into that Leo Jack position. You know, he's a guy I kind of see that we need to give him a job to do. I mean, he's a frontline guy. We need to give him a job to do, put him on the attack, you know, whether that's from the linebacker position or up close to the ball. But I'm still trying to figure that out. But he's a guy that I'm counting on to be a part of the defense.
Right next door, Nathan Baird, Cleveland.com.
Just wanted to get a real quick. You said you started from this week. We'll eventually add that hybrid position to that set.
Yes, we'll add it.
Okay. And Ryan said that some of the young cornerbacks, guys are freshmen last year, were among the guys who recognize the most. So what coaches wondered in the season guys like David Johnson, Jordan Hancock, and what they can do?
You know, I didn't know them in the past, but I see them as becoming mature, really quick guys, athletic guys, quick, as I watch them in the off-season work. And they have a willingness to get better and to take coaching, whether that's in the weight room and on the field. So I just think there's a ton of potential there.
We'll go over here to the far right, Colin Gay, Rivals.
That's my job. I mean, my job is to get them there, because he's exactly right. When it comes to Saturday, I tell them all the time their mistakes on Saturday are on me, because if they haven't reached that point where they can play free within the scheme, then I haven't done a good enough job teaching them. So, yeah, and then when you watch guys now, you're right. You got to give them the benefit of the doubt, because when you watch a guy that doesn't know what to do, right, he can look lethargic or hesitant. I got to get him to that point. That's the bottom line, you know. And when you install a lot early, sometimes that locks a guy up. But I'll keep adjusting that so we can get guys to play free.
Good observation.
I like Steele a lot in terms of his attitude, his athletic ability. He's got a bright light in his eyes. He's locked in. He's he wants to learn. He's always there. He's up front, sitting on the edge of his seat. He seems like a guy that will become a great player, and I'm excited to work with him.
Final question, Spencer. Did you have one? Yep. Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Road. Back.
I'm sure Tanner was a pretty good resource for these guys during the mental process of doing their workouts. How much more important is he for you, used as a resource, but also for these guys on the field to try to quickly acclimate themselves to exactly what you want them to do?
Yeah, Tanner, I'm really proud of him. He came in here, didn't say a word, and Coach Mick gave him a high honor at our Champions Banquet. For a guy to come in and get that honor, I'm really proud of him, and to be a part of his life. But yeah, he's that guy who can talk to the players not only about scheme, but he can talk to them about me too. Day one, if I go from being Mr. Calm to running around and screaming, he can say, hey, that's just Knowles, chill out, he's fine, that's just the way he is, don't take it personal. He just wants you to get better. That's to have a guy their own age who knows me as a person, and he's gonna be able to tell the guys a lot about me, not just as a teacher and scheme, and he can teach the scheme, but he can tell them about me and how I operate and who I am.
A lot of the attention goes to linebackers and defensive ends moving around defensively. What do you expect as the defensive coordinator? What do you look for in your defensive tackles that make you know that they can play in the system and complement the linebackers defensively?
Yeah, this is exactly what Coach Johnson has taught all along for years. You just want guys that are going to get off the ball and are able to play aggressive and, create havoc for the offense inside. You want guys inside that just cause problems for the offense, that when they look, they have to find ways to double team, because they're worried about the penetration and the plays that guys are going to make in there.
Can I just ask a logistical question? Just so Ohio State fans are using your vernacular, are you using the same terms for the positions on defense that you did at Oklahoma State? And would you just mind running through those again when you reference guys?
Yeah, I'd say the terms are a little different, right? Up front right now, because we haven't created a float player yet. We're using a rush end, a tackle, a nose, and an end. So R, T, N, E. Mike and Will at linebackers. Our boundary safety is called a bandit. Our middle safety is called an adjuster, and our nickel is called a nickel. So that's different. That's different than it was at Oklahoma State. So sometimes when you move, you look at what you say. Well, I can really say this better. You know what I mean? That's so. Instead of calling the bandit like we did at Oklahoma State, he was the free safety. Well, the bandit is the boundary safety, right? It makes sense, B. And then instead of make that middle safety, we call him the adjuster, because he is the guy that has to really adjust to the formation. So there's things you get to do when you take a new job to make things better for the players and understandable.
Great. Coach, thank you.